Hello, everyone. As you are joining us, we are excited to have you here. Tell us where you are from in the chat. We are excited to have everybody here, and we would love to see where you're from. And then feel free to add a hobby or anything that you like to do, because that just helps us to get to know each other a little better. So throw any of that you would like in the chat. Some great names here. Oh my gosh, look at this. And it's really going.
I'm watching all the names come through in the towns, and I'm going, oh, I know where that is. Oh, I've been there. Oh, look at that. So welcome, everybody. We're so thrilled to have you, and we're going to jump right in. Melody will be first. Melody Warnick. She's the author of 2 books about thriving where you live. Now, one is This Is Where You Belong, Finding Home Wherever You Are, and that's an exploration of the groundbreaking concept of place attachment. And the other one is If You Could Live Anywhere, the surprising power of place in a work from anywhere world. And that's a guide on how location independent people choose where to live and how communities can attract and retain them. Now, Melody lives with her family in Blacksburg, Virginia, where she works as a writer and communications specialist for Virginia Tech. Welcome, Melody. It's all yours.
Deb, and I am really glad to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Did that work?
Yes.
It's always a special miracle when the technology works. So I am, as Deb said, I am from Blacksburg, Virginia. I love seeing everyone else's towns roll through the chat, and I do know a lot of these places because I am someone who thinks a lot about place. Like Deb said, I have written 2 books about place, and they're both really inspired by my obsession with moving and my experience with moving. I wrote the first book, This Is Where You Belong, when I moved from Austin, Texas to Blacksburg, Virginia, and felt lost and like I hated it for a while, and felt like I really wanted someone to write a guide to how do you move and put down roots in a community. And then I wrote my second book, If You Could Live Anywhere, because I couldn't stop thinking about moving and why people choose to move and where they go and what that is all about. We know that every year about 10 to 15% of Americans move. Some of those are just, moving to the house down the street. Some of those are moving across town. Some of those are big moves to move to different states or move from a city to a small town or rural area. And we know a lot more people than are actually moving are thinking about moving. About 34% of Americans say that they would move communities if they could. We saw a ton of that in COVID when nearly 50% of Americans were really re-examining where they lived. I think it was a great reckoning for place as people all of a sudden realized that maybe they had some freedom to relocate. A lot of people went remote, and many people became what I call anywhereists. These are people who have the freedom to choose where they want to live and take that really seriously because they see it as a way to create the kind of life that they really want. So we know that in COVID, the term Zoomtown became popular. 22 million Americans still work remotely from home. And this felt like a really big opportunity for small towns because all of a sudden, small towns could attract people who had non-small town and rural jobs because they could work remotely from any community in the country that had a good internet connection. But anywhereists are more than that. There are lots of anywhereists who are doctors or lawyers or teachers, people who have the kind of jobs that most communities need. And so they have a lot of autonomy in choosing where they live. They can be retirees. They can be small business owners. So really, there's this whole group of people out there, these anywhereists, who are thinking really hard about where they want to end up and what that could mean for their life. So what that means for small towns and rural areas, a lot of communities are thinking hard about how can we attract and then retain these people. If you haven't seen the website Make My Move, I recommend that you check it out. It's a website that catalogs offers that communities are making to try and attract talent. This started with Tulsa, Oklahoma, that engineered this idea of, if you're a remote worker or location independent and you want to come to our community, we will pay you cash money and we'll give you a co-working space and some opportunities to socially interact with people in your community. And it worked so well for Tulsa that a lot of other communities have ripped that off. But I love what Mayfield and Graves County, Kentucky is doing, because they're offering $5,000 cash if you relocate and 50% off after school childcare. But then they're offering a monthly gift of a dozen locally sourced eggs, lunch with the mayor, community tour, and then tickets and family passes to the Performing Arts Theater and the Graves County High School home sporting events. I love that so much. And I'm not here to tell you how to offer $5,000 a person to anyone willing to relocate to your community. But I love that this really gets to what I think anywhereists are looking for. Because first, anywhereists are looking for affordable cost of living. Are we all looking for that? This is an era of high inflation and expensive mortgage interest rates. And a lot of people imagine how their life would be different if they could find a place where housing was cheaper or where cost of living was cheaper. And I think, I know housing is a problem in a lot of communities, but in communities where you have available housing, you typically, small towns and rural areas typically have an edge on cost of living. But, anywhereists are also looking for a good quality of life. And that term can be really nebulous. It can mean different things to different people. It can mean good school systems or good hospitals or restaurants and small local businesses, parks. It can mean things you have no control over, like weather. But what it means is, in general, is that people want to be able to do the things in your community that make them happy, that help them live a full life. I have a friend who is obsessed with Gilmore Girls, and she and her family literally chose to move from a bigger city to a small rural community in West Virginia because they're looking for Stars Hollows. They want to live that kind of life. They want a small, friendly community and a place where they can feel at home. So I think what happens is that the looking for a new community is incredibly emotional. People aren't always super logical. I think people definitely make spreadsheets. I have seen some of these spreadsheets. They're trying to be practical. They're trying to look at numbers. But I think at the end of the day, where you live is emotional. And that's because this thing called place attachment, which is this feeling of being deeply at home in a place, of being rooted there, of being connected to your community and having pride in it. That is an emotional consideration. The nice thing about place attachment is that you can develop it even in a community that maybe you don't love at first, which is what I did in Blacksburg, Virginia. Landed here, didn't totally love it, but learned to love it. I learned that place attachment is malleable and our behavior has an effect on it. And there's some research that points to which behaviors correlate with place attachment. So there's a lot of research that says if you walk and bike in your community, you're more likely to feel that sense of ownership. So when I wanted to develop more place attachment in my community, I walked and biked more. I shopped at the local farmers market. I voted in local elections. I volunteered at the local historic movie theater. I went hiking. There are all sorts of things that you can do to emotionally connect and build place attachment in a community once you're there. But We want people to be able to choose to come to our community, typically before they've had a chance to develop place attachment. So I want to give a quick pop quiz to see how place attached you are to your community. If you've ever seen me speak, you've done this quiz, but I think it's a good litmus test, because if the people who live in the community, who care about it enough that they're on a webinar today about talent attraction and retention, if those people really love their community, chances are that you will find other people who see the great things in your town and want to attach as well. So I'm going to show you 10 statements. I want you to keep track of how many times you say yes for yourself in the community that you live in now. So first, I feel comfortable here. Do you feel comfortable in your town? Whatever that means to you. I know my way around. The friendships I have with people in my community mean a lot to me. I like to tell people about where I live. Classic small town quality, right? Telling people what's great about your community. I'm really interested in knowing what's going on here. Depending on your job, you may be the one making all the things happening go on in your town. I can rely on people in this town to help me. My town isn't perfect, but there are a lot of things that make me love it. If something exciting were happening here, I'd want to be involved. I care about the future success of my town. And last, it feels like home. So add up your score out of 10 and maybe throw it in the chat. We can look at those, see how you did. I'm seeing a lot of 10. 9.5, Becky. What was the half? I have to know. You'll have to explain it when you talk. I'm seeing mostly 8, 9s, and 10s, which does not surprise me, because you are a self-selected audience of people who care about this topic, which means you care about your community. So what I hope you take away from this is that the connection you have with your place is emotional, and your place needs to capture people's hearts first and foremost. The practical stuff, the hospitals and the schools are important as well, but you can get people to move to a town that doesn't even have a Chick-fil-A if you can get people to feel emotionally connected to your community, if they can fall in love with it, if they can imagine themselves living the kind of life they want in your town. And I think a lot of people are doing that. I think a lot of people, for better or worse, maybe idealize what small towns and rural areas have to offer. But a lot of people love the idea of what living in a small community or in a rural area could be for them. So if you can capitalize on that feeling, I think you have a huge advantage in talent attraction and retention. And with that, I will hand it over.
Thank you, Melody. Thank you very much. Time sure flies, doesn't it? So next, I want to introduce Becky McCray, who is a rural entrepreneur, cattle rancher, and my co-founder at SaveYour.Town. She shares her own hands-on successes and failures as a retail business owner, city administrator, nonprofit executive, and community volunteer. She created our influential survey of rural challenges and the Idea Friendly method. Becky always shares practical steps you can put into action right away to shape a better future for your town.
Okay, thank you so much, Deb. And wow, Melody has really knocked it out of the park as usual. If you do not love Melody's quiz, you should. I love that quiz because it's such a great opportunity to stop and think about how connected you really are. And I really liked what Melody said about how we all have things we need to feel like we can live a full life, or things that we want so that we can live a full life. And so that's why I'd like to start with our assets. I'm going to interrupt myself to say we've captured several questions out of the chat, and we will be bringing up those topics to talk over and to get your input on in the Q&A after I finish and then after Deb finishes. So we are definitely keeping track of those. Feel free to put any other questions that come up or thoughts you want to share in the chat, because we want to share your ideas. We've saved a lot of time for that. So let's talk again about our assets. Let's look at our assets. At last year's Rural Renewal Symposium, which was put on by Oklahoma State University, Dr. Mark Feltz, who is from East Central University in Oklahoma, led a session that he called Rurality as an Asset. That word rurality is really just the academic way of saying being rural. And he was inspired, Dr. Feltz was, after he heard a news interviewer grab one of our state officials and ask them, "What's the elevator pitch for young professionals to move to Oklahoma?" And the official kind of froze for a second and said, "Well, we're getting better." And Dr. Feltz said, "We need a better elevator speech." And so he made up this exercise. And so you want to just make a list of assets that make your place rural. So assets or good things. And we at the event, we came up with this list, and we had things like access to nature and recreation, and feeling interconnected, feeling safe, the ability to live locally, to have that local connection, as well as like local economy kind of things, and the slower pace of life. And in all, we actually came up with 20 different assets of rural places that any of which would make a better elevator speech than "we're getting better." Now, you can make a list like this in your community and then use these assets as your elevator pitch when you talk to young people or to newcomers or to someone who's considering moving, and ask them what they would add to the list, what matters to them. Now, Deb will be helping you in a minute to take these asset lists and expand them into telling your story more effectively. And as you are thinking about these assets that you already have, your people are one of those assets. But even in tiny towns, we don't really know everything about everyone, even if it seems like it sometimes. So let's look at ways to get to know more about your own people and use that to build stronger connections across your communities. And when I spoke to a group in Caldwell, Kansas, which has a population of about 1,000 people, we went around the room and I had everyone introduce themselves. And I noticed that just naturally, the older people tended to introduce themselves by the organizations that they belong to and serve on. So one person said, "I'm on the Chamber of Commerce Executive Committee, I volunteer with the Historical Society, and I'm on the alumni board." But younger people introduced themselves very differently. They started with the activities they enjoy doing. So one person towards the back said, "I love to garden. Some friends and I do a book club. Oh, and I have a little free library." You could just hear her thinking through what she likes to do. Now, the implication for this is part of how you recruit people for projects or organizations is to move from asking people to join your organization or serve on a committee to start inviting people to participate in activities they will enjoy and that you can help them see are going to make a difference in the community. Because then you become this movement that people can get behind and not just another volunteer organization. And so this is true whether they're new in town or they have been here for generations. Now, we have used this method to build better connections between people and participation. When I visited several rural communities in Washington and Idaho earlier this year, there was a gathering in Potlatch, Idaho, population 800. And by doing it this way, we found out that the high school has a whole bunch of new metalworking equipment and that the kids in the shop class are super excited about working with it. We also found out that the Arts Council is working on adding metal art to one of the local parks. So this was a natural connection. Also, we found out the new community garden was looking for people to help. That was something that somebody just added as an aside. "Oh, I'm helping start the community garden and we need help." And then a relatively new resident who lives in a rural area close to town is really into self-sufficiency and homesteading. She said, and then she turned to the woman who said that as an aside and said, I would be very interested in helping with the community garden. And those two women were sitting at the same table, but they didn't know each other yet. Now, the simple thing for you to use from that is to ask people at gatherings, what do you enjoy doing? What do you care about? And that will help them to be better connected to your community. And you noticed that's what we asked you to put into the chat. And mine was gardening and photography. So now another one of the towns that I visited with the Inland Northwest Partners was called Uniontown, Washington. And the town population is about 300. And then in the whole surrounding area, there's maybe 1,200 people. So it's definitely a small town. But that doesn't mean it's a unified town with this uniform sense of place and connection. Uniontown added a housing addition in the 2010s, and so that has brought new residents to town. The issue with that is it feels separate from the old town. So there's this sidewalk that connects the addition to downtown. But if you're in the addition, you have to walk all the way down the hill in the addition, and then you cross this empty piece of land, and then you come down 2 blocks of sidewalks in town, and there's waist-high retaining wall on one side of you, and there's these overhanging trees that drop pine needles and pine cones and kind of make a mess on the sidewalk. And on your other side are all these vehicles that are parked on the grass between the sidewalk and the street. This is not a welcoming introduction to town. So it is not surprising that the people in the housing addition organized their own sort of community events. So like they had a Halloween treat event and they're setting up an Easter egg roll. And so the question is, how can the town leaders who all live in the old town better connect with the people in the new town? So the first thing I thought of is like, let's grab a broom and clean up the sidewalks. Let us work with the residents to relocate these parked vehicles. Some of them have not been moved like they're very stationary and they need to find a new home. And maybe we could even paint or decorate that retaining wall, but we should cooperate with those homeowners on the hill who are all along this sidewalk here so that they're not just surprised when we, just ambush them with art that maybe they wouldn't like. So let's cooperate with those homeowners as well. The second thing would be go meet people at the addition. Those leaders from the old town need to go there and learn about those events. They need to go participate in those events. Maybe bring their kids to the kids' events. You cannot get to know people by waiting for them to come to you or by telling them about your plans and your ideas and your events. You have to listen to them, to work together, to think of ways to bridge that distance and bring the parts of your community together. Now, in this same town, there's also an RV park, and it has 13 spaces, and it's on the other end of town, of course. Now, most of the residents in that RV park are there for a long-term stay for work. Like these are traveling medical professionals who may be working in nearby cities that are larger and have traveling healthcare people. But this is another opportunity to reach out to people who are here right now and meet them. What are their needs? I mean, there are not very many services on that site. So do they need a laundromat or places to eat? What hours? Are they actually home in Uniontown? And does that line up with any of our existing businesses? Do these folks have things that they like to do? Do they have hobbies or activities they like? Uniontown is a big center for arts and crafts. So is anybody staying at the park who likes participating in arts events? Are there other kind of events or activities that they might like to be part of or maybe even help create? These people live here now. And that makes them important. You do not have to move here permanently to be a part of the community. So take a moment to think about the different parts of your community and who is here now who could be better connected to the community. Now, our next thing is that we're going to go to Deb Brown. So Deb is my co-founder at SaveYour.Town. And, hold on one second. She brings a wide range of real world experience. I mean, a wide range. Most recently as a Chamber of Commerce director with certification from the Institute for Organization Management. Now, Deb's got a secret superpower. She has this willingness to talk with anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. and sees the value in conversation with everyone. And her practicality and her common sense are going to help you get and create the kind of town that you want. So take it away, Deb.
Thank you. All right, here we go. So Melody shared with you, I need to move my thing so I can see what I'm doing here. Melody shared with you what factors people are looking for. And then Becky talked about rurality as an asset. And I'm going to focus on the value of telling our stories. So if we're not sharing our stories, the stories that showcase how we are building a community that we love together, then we leave the door wide open for others to tell the wrong kind of stories. Stories help bring people to town, to visit and to live. So your story of community, of coming together, of having the life you love matters both to visitors and locals as well. When I visit a small town, I'll ask the gas station clerk what I should do. And too often the answer is, there's nothing to do here. Now, objectively, I know that's not true, but without some simple statement of excitement, people think it is true. This is how your town is seen, as a place where there's nothing to do. There's an easy fix to this that anyone can do. Start a positive story campaign. They created this list in Tassos, British Columbia. So you can ask on social media what people do for fun in town or what you love about your town, and then share the answers. Maybe create a list of the top 10 or 20 and print it out. Send it to the newspaper. Use it as a handout for those local clerks to hand to someone when they get asked what is there to do here. You can put it in your church bulletins. You can give it to the seniors and the coffee shop guys. You can also have your students continue to add to the list and keep it positive, and most importantly, have some fun with it. At a recent visit to Shawnee, Oklahoma, I learned they've started their own Facebook page just for good news called Positively Shawnee. They're also using the hashtag Tell Me Something Good Shawnee. I lived in Iowa, where the media comes every 4 years and looks for stories about politics. And the easy path is for them to visit a small town, head to the coffee shop or the post office, and they talk to the old guys. And these old guys often focus on negative answers, which in turn becomes the image of rural America. If we don't tell our own stories, it is left to those who have no idea how great our towns really are. So where are these good stories about why people are moving here, and how do you find them? When I was in Mount Ayr, Iowa, on a 3-day community engagement, I had the opportunity to meet with a few young business owners, and this is a picture of that. In fact, they meet regularly with each other and actively work on creating a town that they want to live in. Now, several of them grew up there and moved to the big cities and decided to work there. Well, once they started raising kids, they looked back at how they were raised and thought, wow, growing up in a rural environment was perfect. And they want to do that same thing for their kids. So they started coming home. And they brought with them their professional network, new work opportunities, technical and updated skills, and the excitement of working with their peers to create what they wanted in their town. But very few of the long-term residents knew these young families were back and making these positive changes. You know, when you graduate from high school, they throw you a big party, but nobody gives you a party when you come back. One way of finding out who the new people are in town is to host a newcomers gathering. And it's really pretty easy. In Bennettsville, South Carolina, they ask the realtors to personally invite people they've sold or rented houses to come for a gathering. And it's a place you can gather and you can ask the kind of questions that aren't written down somewhere, like, can I burn my garbage in town? When I went, they talked about places you can volunteer, and a couple of businesses talked about what they do. We also put together a walk around town for the next day so newcomers could see the empty buildings available that were for sale or for rent. Also, please do your own research. Now, I like LinkedIn for keeping up with what's happening in our small towns. Aaron Putsey is a speaker and author and works for the Iowa soybean folks. At an event, he had the opportunity to talk with 120 young people who are working as interns for Iowa cooperatives. Now, Aaron shared on LinkedIn about that experience, and he listed some of these opportunities in agriculture, like there's a growing global demand for protein, the rise of artificial intelligence, working with great people in ag, new market growth in countries around the world, and of course, new uses for soy. That made me think about what kind of opportunities are really available in our small towns. There's no small stories, and I encourage you to please share your stories online too. Aaron gave several businesses the opportunity to talk about how they fit into this new world of ag. You can look for ways to tell your story as well. So, what kind of stories are you telling to help share your community's benefits? Well, there are resources available, and I don't want you to be afraid to learn how to use them. It's easier than you think. The storytelling apps make telling stories a lot easier. You can make videos from your pictures with tools like Lumen 5 or Animoto. They're free, and they use artificial intelligence to create those great short videos. You could reach out to the students in your town. Now, we did that in Webster City, Iowa, when we were trying to save the movie theater. My friend Jeff and I went to the entrepreneurial class and asked those students what they could do to help us spread the word. To our great and happy surprise, those students created movie trailers just for us. It was an idea that we weren't even thinking about, but boy, those trailers were fun and really helped to spread the word. Now, you and I could spend a lot of time on these tools, but I think you're going to enjoy checking out my list for yourself, and it will be attached to the page where you can find the recording in about a week. Don't assume there are no new folks in town, or that it's just the same kind of people as you moving to town. Besides the former young people coming back, diversity is alive and well in small towns too. Our families look different these days, don't they? Adoption, mixed families, new employees and their families are all bringing diversity to town. And diversity is not just race or color. Old people and young people, newcomers from other countries, working class white-collar folks, country folk and townies, education differences, tribal and native communities, religions, political views, gender differences, they're all part of new, diverse conversations. So I encourage you to look for diversity and invite people who are different from you to learn about each other. Go out for a cup of coffee, share some ideas, maybe try some new things together. Just start with small steps. And finally, we have a story request for you. Our biannual survey of rural challenges is open until June 30th, and we'd love to hear more about your challenges and assets. It's only 10 questions, and your answers are shared in reports, presentations, infographics, articles, all over. And because you're rural, your input is valued and tells the real stories of rural challenges and assets that we are honored to be able to share. And I would like to thank you all.
We are going to hit the questions, and we have your questions first. So we're going to do that. So the first one was, Betty got in first on the question business, and she says, okay, so what about whether monetary incentives stick? Do they stick? Once the incentive timeframe is over, do people stay? Melody, do you have any answers on that?
So I haven't seen hard data on this, and most of these programs are pretty new. I think Tulsa debuted their program in 2018, so we don't have a super long timeline. In my new book, I wrote about a couple from Orlando who moved to the Shoals, Alabama with one of these programs, and their program was sort of phased so that you got the money in increments depending on how long you lived there. So there was a bit of a commitment. You couldn't just come in for a year, grab your cash, and leave. But the goal, at least in the Shoals, was we want to have people stay long term. So they interviewed families who were thinking about moving. And then when they did move, it was like, we're going to programmatically integrate them into the community. So unfortunately, this couple moved during COVID. But even so, they said, we are here for the long haul. And they were given opportunities to connect with other recent newcomers, people who are working remotely, but also long-timers and given opportunities to volunteer in town and things like that. So I think it comes down to what happens next. We talk a lot about talent attraction, and maybe we're talking a little less about talent retention. And that could be the piece that clinches it all, is what kind of job are you doing helping people feel at home and develop place attachment in your community once they arrive, so they want to stay long term.
And I just want to throw in Akron, Iowa, they had empty lots for housing, and you could buy an empty lot for $500. And the only catch was you had to build your house within 1 year. And if you didn't, they took the lot back and you didn't get your money back. They filled those lots up really pretty quickly, and they're looking at spreading to new locations to get more people.
Okay, so next question is actually a comment from Paula Jensen, who is a longtime friend of ours as well. And she says, have you heard of Porchlight Services? They certify rural communities to be workforce ready for newcomers. And Deb and I have just recently had some conversations with Porchlight Services, and we find them very interesting. So the link for that is in your chat. It's already back up there where Paula mentioned it. So you can scroll back and find that, and we'll be saving the chat as well. The next one is Matt Titus says, I'm on the planning team for my 20-year high school reunion. We are throwing a big party Saturday night for the classes, giving a tour Saturday afternoon for the high school renovations and new career technical education programs. Any good ideas how to make good use of the return to hometown for my classmates? And I really want to talk about this. I have the Winoka story. This is the ultimate make use of your returning alumni story. Winoka, Oklahoma, population now in the 800 to 900 range. They have an all-school class reunion once every 5 years. So all the classes get together, and they have like all the people from the 70s are over here, all the people from the 80s are meeting over here. So they get together, and they're all over downtown in every available space that they can find. And so somebody popped off at the reunion about how downtown looked run down and these buildings looked awful. And wasn't it terrible how the town was dying? And somebody who lived in town said, pony up, right? Like, what we need to step forward and work on it. And so the people of Winoka, these alumni, organized a group called Project Winoka. And that project, they signed up a lot of alumni. They signed up a lot of local residents. They fundraised on that alumni list intensively. And the key was that the plan was to buy buildings that were available, work on them, get them in better shape, and get them back into use. So that's what they did. They bought the first one on the cheap because it was run down. They rehabbed it. They painted it. They did the entire interior rehab, and then they put it on the market. The city actually bought it because they needed a space for the library. So that's how it was, but it was on the open market. Anyone could have bought it. And then they took the money they received from that, which wasn't a ton. They didn't try to do much more than recoup their building price and materials. And then they flipped it, right? Like, so then they took that money, they bought another one. And then they did that one. And they did, I bet, a dozen buildings over 15 years. And it's kind of run down a bit now because they've gotten tired of doing it. But wow, what a way to tap your alumni. So don't limit the tour just to the school, but take them downtown as well and get them engaged in your community. And I'll let other people add other ideas there.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, I cannot top that story. That is an amazing story. But I was going to say that exact thing. I love that they're getting a tour of the new school and things like that. But definitely take them downtown. If these are graduates who haven't been there in 20 years, show them what has happened while they're gone, while they've been gone. So depending on the size of your town and what's there, that could be a picnic at a new local park or recreation area, or it could be, a version of a pub crawl in a downtown, but maybe, a small business crawl. And we're going to stop in and we're going to get samples from the new candy store or whatever. Anything that helps them experience the really great stuff about your town, I think boomerangs are probably the number one group that moves back to rural communities or, right up there. I love Greensboro, North Carolina, not a small town at all, but they developed a whole initiative around attracting boomerangs back to Greensboro, Greensboro had a website where they were highlighting stories of people who had grown up there, moved away to the city, and boomeranged back. And I think this is a huge opportunity for a small town to get your former residents in town, to show them what's great about it, and hopefully help them see the possibilities for themselves.
All right. Okay, so we next have, by the way, we have time for some more questions. I think we're going to make it through these. And so if you have other questions or comments that you want to put in there, I did throw a link in the chat to a story about Project Winoka that I wrote, of course. But it does include some information about how they did it. So it's really cool. There's photos too. Everybody loves to see photos. So we have another question from Betty, which was, how do you balance recruiting so that you don't make your long-term residents feel unimportant?
Which one of us wants to tackle that question?
That's a great question.
I'll start. If you're sharing your stories, everybody has the opportunity to feel important. If you're not hearing from a certain segment, and maybe it's the fellas at the coffee shop, it's a good example. When I was talking about the tour of empty buildings, none of them thought it was a great idea until I had the conversation with one fella asking him, doesn't your daughter live out of town? What would it be like if she moved back into town? Now I'd found his motivation, and he was excited to think about those opportunities. So now he had the ability to say, hey, we're going to do this tour and my friends are going to help talk about it, and we'd love to see our people come back. It put him in the spotlight in a way that was comfortable for him as well.
Yeah, I think this is a challenge for communities who are investing in talent attraction or retention, because there will always be people who don't want the newcomers, and whatever they represent, the change that might happen in the community. Virginia Tech has done some research about how communities with a high proportion of remote workers and transplants are grappling with this. And it seems like there kind of always is, at least at first, that divide between the from here's and the come here's, like the people who've been in town forever and they remember what it was like in the 70s, and that's what they're hoping to return to. And the newcomers who maybe are moving from cities with their idea of city amenities, they want a Starbucks in town, or they want to bring some trendy new amenities, and it can be a point of tension for sure. I think one idea there is, if you can get the long timers to feel invested in the town's growth and in the benefits of the newcomers, that can be helpful. One town that I've heard about, Burlington, North Carolina, did a welcoming event, kind of like what Deb was describing, but it was bringing people down to City Hall who were newcomers to the town, or who were even considering moving there. And we have representatives from local businesses and local nonprofits and the town council. And we give the newcomers a chance to mingle with the old timers and the people who are trying to get new volunteers or new patrons to their stores, things like that. And you start trying to quickly build those connections between the long timers and the newcomers, so that people who have been there a long time, long-term residents, don't see this as we're being pushed out, our interests aren't being listened to. They understand that the growth and the new energy is actually a positive for them and the community they want to see as well.
So this is really good stuff. I want to throw one more thing into that answer, which is Sterling Rawdon, Ontario, which is, I think, a township actually, does an active community expo where they bring different groups in the community that exist that do things, everything from the kayaking club to the kids' sports teams to arts activities to everything that they can think of like, how could you be active in the community? And they bring it to one place as an expo. And so anybody can come, and then they make a big deal about bringing people. They do giveaways, like every incentive they can think of to bring people to get involved. They hold it at their big arena. People come out, and then because it's like a buffet then of how can I be involved in the community? And instead of events and organizations just begging for volunteers, it's an opportunity to showcase how we can be involved and active together. And then Betty says she loves the expo idea. We stole it. Cassandra Bonifaz.
I think that's right.
I think that's right. Active Community Expo. It's no longer running, but they ran it for like 5 or 6 years. And I'm sure it was a huge deal to put on, but for 5 or 6 years, that's a benefit. It doesn't have to last forever. Just like Project Winoka didn't have to keep going forever. This doesn't have to last forever to have value. So the next thing from Betty.
Well,
yes.
I'm going to interject real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And so when you're bringing these nonprofits together, please don't just sit at the table and hand out brochures. I have organized way too many events, and I'm the one that always has to pick up the brochures off the ground that people have thrown away. One nonprofit organization, the Historical Society, got this brilliant idea to take pictures of old buildings and put them on a block. And on the other side of the block, they put pictures of what was there now. They had so many people at their table trying to identify what that used to be. And I remember when, and it was such an fun time for both the volunteers and the people that showed up at the table to learn more about their community. So make it engaging, have some fun with it. Don't just expect people to get excited because you hand them a brochure. They won't.
All right. So, all right. I've got 2 more here that I'm working on. One is another one from Betty, but it's a really great question. And I think Deb has good answers for this, which is, how do you capture this info as you learn what people like to do and what they care about, so that it isn't just in one person's head? And then, like, other than Excel, what are some tools that don't cost a lot of money because we're rural, that you can use to capture that info? And is this where the what to do in Crow's Nest Pass Pinterest board comes up?
That's a perfect spot for it. Yes. So you can create your own list, just like they did in TASAs. Do that same kind of thing, but put it up on Pinterest so it's an open board that others can put things on it as well. So that capturing becomes not just in one physical location, but everybody can participate in it. And that's wonderful. When I do walk-arounds at communities, I take a ton of notes, and then I use the Excel sheet. But the secret is in sharing what the answers were. So talk to people and invite people out for a bite to eat or a beer or a cup of coffee, and ask them, what else am I missing on this list? What else could we do here? You'll be amazed at what people tell you.
Now, Deb has a list of tools that she shared. It was just like one slide in her talk. And so you just blinked and it went past. But that's going to be uploaded. That will be made available to you. A couple that are worth mentioning. Deb mentioned Pinterest, which is super easy, user-friendly. You can make a group together, can work on these ideas. Crow's Nest Pass Alberta has a board that's started by the local cafe called the Stones Throw Cafe, of what to do in Crow's Nest Pass. And now it's a group board and lots of people share ideas. And what was the Proxyco?
No, yeah, we didn't even talk about Proxy. Yeah, please explain. This is a wonderful tool.
It's a wonderful mapping tool, and they have a free level of tools that any nonprofit can qualify for, and it's at proxy.co, which I'm fixing to throw into the chat. And I know it's in Deb's list as well. But they have some wonderful mapping features. And so you can make your own map, put your own pins in there, and it's designed for sharing. You can do these publicly on Google Maps, and there's a ton of other tools, and Deb has put some of those together for you. We will be sharing those. All right.
Can I add one thought to that?
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure if part of what Betty was asking, and maybe I maybe saw another question that seemed related to this. about collecting information about your community members, particularly because Becky, you talked about, figuring out what people are into and kind of gathering that, and maybe how do you retain that information? And the thing that comes to mind is using a customer relationship management system, tools that are designed basically for sales, like where you can kind of keep track of information about people. I have used one called Airtable, that there are free versions and it's really inexpensive. You're definitely getting into privacy concerns there if you're actually cataloging things about people in your town. But I think in a small town or a rural community, it probably is worth having someone who's trying to retain some of that information, what we learned about, what so-and-so's into and how they contribute to the assets in our community.
Okay, we've got another major question here, which is, oh, wait, I lost it. Hold on. Things are moving on screen. Hold on. Todd Jagger or Jaeger, you can let us know if I got that right. Lack of available housing is a major hurdle for our community in attracting and retaining folks. Do you have ideas? Now, that is too much for us to cover here. Like, we have a whole hour of a webinar on this, and it's free. So this is the free webinar. I'm throwing that link into the chat. It's in response to your message there, Todd. And then I'll throw it in the general chat. So it's, again, at the bottom in case that doesn't show up at the bottom. Like my cousin Mick Jagger. Cousin Mick needs to send you more royalties. This is what we think for you. But I think there's a lot on housing. So we're going to not try to answer that now. Go ahead and watch that. We have Ben Winchester on that webinar. He shares like a ton of data because he's Ben Winchester. And we are down to the last few minutes. We also have a paid video on housing as well. It's a $9 investment. I think you get a discount actually if you sign up for the free thing. So go sign up for the free thing and then get the $6 or whatever it is off the webinar. But it's too big to cover here. And then this last question is also way too huge. I don't think we can cover it in 4 minutes. But Maggie asked, what are some common barriers to authentic engagement? Oh my gosh, they're everywhere, right? I'm giving a presentation, she says, on the power of authentic engagement in community planning and projects, and would love to hear your experiences. Paula Jensen, who I think is still present, I could be wrong. Paula, if you're here, throw your email address in the chat for folks so that, because I think Paula has a lot to say about barriers to authentic engagement. This is one of the things I've heard her speak very wisely about. So Paula, if you would be willing to talk with folks about that, feel free. There you go, Paula Jensen, paula@dakotaresources.org. Thank you so much, Paula, because I know that you work on that one a lot. What insights do you, Deb, and Melody want to offer on barriers to authentic engagement?
We're both like,
that would be no.
Where do we start, right?
Yeah, it is a big one. Like the fact that Maggie's talking about community planning and projects makes me think engagement here is more like getting people to engage in a planning process or be involved in that. And it is tough. It's tough to get people to show up. I think simply offering as many avenues towards that as you possibly can, if you're soliciting opinions, if you're trying to get people to volunteer for projects, making sure that there's an online option and, the anonymous survey plus showing up in person to an event and reaching people where they are.
Okay, yeah, so that's important. I was going to say that don't hold one town hall and think you're going to get every answer that you could ever possibly want. You're going to have to find many ways to reach out to your community.
Okay. I did receive a private message asking if we would repeat the website resource that was shared by Melody early on in the webinar. And I think that is makemymove.com. And so let me put that into the group chat. Here it is, makemymove.com. Is that the right one, Melody?
I'm double checking that it is. Yes, it's makemymove.com. And okay. Yeah, it's fun to poke around in there. A lot of the offers are from cities, but some of them are from rural places and small towns. And I think it's interesting just to see what people are doing. And I think, the example I shared, you may not want to go as far as saying, we'll give you $5,000 to move here, but you can offer a meeting with your mayor maybe, or a community tour, or the dozen eggs a month.
A dozen eggs?
You know,
I mean, really?
If you're a newcomer in a small town and all of a sudden eggs are showing up on your porch, like what better to make you feel welcome in a new town?
Everybody gets zucchini and a full of hen and chicks.
Indeed.
Exactly. Okay. Brenda says, I'm looking forward to getting the information about additional Zoom webinar meetings. And I've thrown the link in response to Brenda there. And let me also put it in the group chat here. This is our site where we, that's our store where we have like all our videos are listed there. There's a number of free videos. There's this webinar, there's the housing webinar, and there's the collaboration webinar that we did with Del Gines from IEDC, previously with the Federal Reserve of Kansas City. And thank you all for being here. Any last thoughts? Melody, Deb, anything we didn't cover that you want to throw in?
And thank you to Melody for joining us for this webinar and getting us to think a little bit differently about place attachment and how that relates to our rural communities. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I always love doing stuff with Deb and Becky, and they're the best. And I learned a lot today from our discussion and really enjoyed it. So thank you to both of you. Thanks for everyone who came.
I did see Melody was like making notes. Oh, that wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll hear that related back. So thank you so much for everyone that participated. We will get the resources out to you as soon as we can. And we will see y'all next time. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.